The morning father told me about Cornelius Blackwood. I understood I was merchandise, not daughter. He announced it over breakfast, casual as discussing weather. You'll marry Blackwood in spring. The merger depends on it. Then he returned to his newspaper, dismissing me with the same attention he'd give a servant. I sat across from him in our Boston dining room, surrounded by crystal and silver and cold marble, and felt the walls closing in. 23 years I'd lived in that mansion. 23 years learning to be ornamental, speak French, play piano, arrange flowers, smile at the right moments. Never learned to choose. Never needed to. Until choosing became survival. Grandmother understood before she died. She'd squeezed my hand, whispered through labored breaths, "Choose your own life, Catherine." She was the only person who'd ever seen me as person, not asset. The only one who'd questioned Father's plans. I'd researched Blackwood, asked questions, listened to servants' whispered warnings about his cruelty, his first wife's convenient accident, his business ruthlessness that matched Father's. Father knew, didn't care. The merger was worth more than my safety. The dinner parties were worst. I'd sit through elaborate meals while men discussed my temperament and breeding as if I were livestock, being evaluated for purchase. I'd learned to smile through it, trained since childhood to be pleasant decoration. But inside, I was screaming. "Miss Catherine has excellent posture," one associate noted. "Good childbearing hips." Another added, Father nodded approval. I kept my trained smile. My hands wanted to shake. I held them still in my lap, practiced and perfect. That night, alone in my room, I stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror. Stranger in silk looked back at me, playing daughter, playing future bride, playing role in Father's business empire. I touched the garnet necklace at my throat, grandmother's final gift to me, her inheritance, her permission. 3 months until the wedding. 3 months to decide become Mrs. Blackwood or become no one they knew. I found the advertisement 2 weeks later, discarded in Father's study. A rough newspaper from out west. Something one of his business partners had left behind. I almost missed it. Crumpled among important documents and stock reports. Montana territory, seeking wife. No questions about past, hard work expected. The words were crude, direct. Nothing like Boston's refined marriage arrangements. But they looked like freedom. Looked like choice. No questions about past, that meant no explanations required. No family investigations. No society approval needed. I read it 3 times, memorized the address, then carefully replaced the newspaper exactly as I'd found it. That night, I began planning. What I could take, not much. Couldn't raise suspicion. Emergency money sewn into hems. Grandmother's necklace. My only inheritance that mattered. Plain dress purchased secretly from shop Father would never frequent. I had 3 months to become invisible. 3 months to prepare. 3 months to choose being no one they knew over being someone I couldn't survive becoming. The morning I left, Boston was still dark. Pre-dawn cold bit through my plain wool dress, nothing like the silks I'd always worn. I took one last look at the mansion, at the prison of crystal and marble and expectations. Then turned toward the station. I didn't leave a note. What could I say, dear Father? I'd rather face unknown hardship than marry the man you've sold me to. He wouldn't understand. Wouldn't care. I was replaceable. Another daughter could have served the same purpose. I just happened to be convenient. The train ticket cost most of my emergency money. Worth it. Every mile from Boston, I breathed easier. Every mile toward Montana. Terror grew. But terror felt better than the slow suffocation of that mansion, that marriage, that life. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was choosing it. That had to count for something. I practiced being poor on the train, watched how working women moved, spoke, carried themselves, tried to soften my educated accent, roughen my careful diction. I understand hard work. I repeated to my reflection in the dark window. The lie tasted bitter. I'd never worked a day in my life. My hands gave me away, soft, pale, unmarked by labor. I kept them hidden in my lap, tucked into my sleeves, anywhere observers couldn't see their obvious truth. These were hands that had poured tea, played piano, arranged flowers, not hands that knew chickens or gardens or any kind of useful work. Montana Territory stretched endless outside the train window, space, silence. Sky that went on forever with nothing to contain it. No walls, no limits, no rules. I understood. Part of me wanted to turn around, go back, accept the familiar prison over this terrifying freedom. But I didn't. I'd made my choice. Now I had to live it. James Thornton met me at the station. I recognized him from his brief description in our correspondence: tall, weathered, somewhere around 40. But his eyes surprised me. Kind eyes that noticed too much. Saw through pretense in ways that made my carefully constructed lies feel transparent. You understand this is ranching. His first words to me, direct. Testing. Hard work. Long days. Not easy living. I understand. My first lie to his face. My soft hands gripped my carpet bag tighter, as if holding on could make the lie true. He studied me for a long moment. I forced myself to meet his gaze, to not flinch, to project confidence I didn't feel. Finally, he nodded and reached for my bag. The ride to his ranch was quiet. His silence unnerved me more than questions would have. Why wasn't he asking about my family? My background? My education that was obvious in every word I spoke? Was he suspicious? Indifferent. Waiting for me to crack, I filled the silence with careful observations about the landscape, neutral comments that revealed nothing. He responded with single words, sometimes just nods. I couldn't read him, couldn't predict him. That was dangerous. The cabin appeared small against the vast Montana sky. Rough, honest, nothing like the mansion I'd fled. Everything I didn't know how to navigate. Everything that would expose my lies within days, maybe hours. Not much, he said, the first full sentence since leaving the station. But its sound keeps weather out. It's fine. Another lie. It terrified me. Inside was simple one main room serving as kitchen and living space. A bedroom visible through an open door. I saw 2 beds, separated by the width of the room. Relief and something else washed through me. Space. Distance. Time to figure out how to sustain this pretense. You'll have 6 months to decide if you want to stay, he said, setting my bag down. If this life suits you, if I suit you, 6 months until our marriage would be legal in every sense. 6 months to maintain lies to a man whose quiet attention missed nothing. Tomorrow I'll show you the ranch. He continued. What needs doing? How things work? I nodded, not trusting my voice. How things work? I didn't even know how to make coffee, let alone run a ranch. That first night, I lay in the narrow bed across from his, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how long I could sustain this deception, wondering when he'd demand explanations for the obvious contradictions my educated speech, my useless hands, my confusion at everything, wondering if I'd traded one trap for another. But at least this trap had been my choice. That had to count for something. It had to. Morning came too early. I woke to sounds of him moving in the other room, building fire, starting coffee. I'd never built a fire, never made coffee, Never done any of the things ranch wives probably did before dawn. I dressed quickly in my plain dress, braided my hair with shaking fingers, and stepped out to face my first test. He handed me a cup without speaking. I took it, grateful, trying not to show how the bitter taste shocked me. This wasn't the refined coffee served in Father's dining room. This was work fuel, strong enough to stand a spoon in. "I'll show you the chickens first," he said. "Then the garden, the well, everything foreign, everything necessary, everything I had no idea how to handle." The chickens terrified me. They moved unpredictably, pecked at my reaching hands, squawked protests at my incompetence. He demonstrated collecting eggs simple, practiced movements. When I tried, I fumbled, cracked one, nearly dropped the basket. He said nothing, just watched, patient. As I struggled through the task, the garden was equally foreign. I couldn't tell weed from crop, didn't understand his instructions about watering or thinning or any of it. My expensive education had prepared me for French literature and polite conversation, not survival. "You'll learn," he said, finally. His first acknowledgement of my obvious incompetence. I wanted to cry. Wanted to confess everything, the lies, the fear, the complete unsuitability for this life. But I'd chosen this. Run from Boston to this. I couldn't admit defeat on the first morning. Dinner that first night was disaster. I burned biscuits, made weak coffee, undercooked beans. The kitchen defeated me as thoroughly as the chickens had. I set the ruined meal in front of him, bracing for criticism, for anger, for the demand to explain how someone my age didn't know basic cooking. He ate without complaint. Every bite of burned biscuit, every spoonful of undercooked beans made it worse, somehow. Criticism I could have handled. This patient acceptance felt like weight on my chest. "Thank you for the meal," he said after, and I almost laughed at the absurdity. The next morning, I found work gloves on the kitchen table, sized for smaller hands. He'd noticed mine blistering from yesterday's work, noticed and prepared and said nothing about it. That small kindness undid something in me. He could have questioned the blisters, pointed out that someone who'd worked before wouldn't have such soft hands. Instead, he'd just quietly solved the problem. An unspoken deal was forming between us. I wouldn't ask why he was so patient with my incompetence. He wouldn't ask why I didn't know things any ranch wife should know. We'd both pretend this was normal. Days passed, then weeks. He taught me tasks, slowing his pace, demonstrating multiple times without frustration, never criticizing, never comparing me to whoever he'd expected, just teaching. Patient, giving me space to fail and learn. I watched my hands transform. Blisters became calluses, soft skin roughened. These hands that had only known piano keys and teacups learned fence posts and chicken feed and garden soil. Physical proof of change, of becoming someone new. 3 weeks in, I realized I hadn't thought about Blackwood in days. Hadn't counted down to the wedding I'd escaped. Had stopped measuring time in Father's terms, stopped thinking about Boston social seasons and business. Quarters and family obligations. Started measuring time differently. Eggs collected successfully. Meals that didn't burn. Fences mended without help. Small victories in this new language of competence. But every night, I wondered when he'd ask. When he'd demand truth. When this fragile peace would shatter. Month 1 passed, then 2. I learned his silences. Frustrated silence, different from tired silence, different from peaceful silence. Learned to read weather in his posture. Predict his needs before he spoke them. Learned Montana. Learned ranch life. Learned myself. But the lie sat between us like third presence. Growing heavier each day, each kindness he showed me added weight to the deception. Each patient lesson made my dishonesty feel more wrong. I told myself I'd confess. Soon. When the time was right, when I felt safe enough. The time never felt right. Safety never felt guaranteed. So I kept quiet, kept learning, kept lying, and waited for everything to fall apart. Spring arrived gradual, thawing the Montana winter I'd barely survived. With it came harder work calving season, planting, fence repairs that winter had damaged. I learned to work beside him, our rhythm developing without words. We'd approach a fence that needed mending. He'd reach for wire cutters. I'd hand them to him before he asked. He'd need the hammer. I'd already have it ready. This wordless understanding grew between us, comfortable and dangerous. Mornings started earlier. We'd work until noon, heat-forced breaks, then return to it until dark. My body changed. Muscles I'd never known existed became defined. Visible. I could lift feed bags now, string wire tight, handle horses without fear. The horses. That had been hardest. In Boston. Ladies rode sedately in parks, side saddle, controlled. Here, horses were work partners, tools. Necessary. He'd taught me to read their moods, earn their trust, work with them instead of trying to control them. Talk to them, he'd said, demonstrating with his gelding. Let them know you're there. Respect their space. I'd watched how gentle he was with injured animals. How patient. That gentleness extended to me, too. I realized patient teaching, respectful distance. Never demanding, never pressing. One afternoon, storm clouds gathered fast. We were miles from the house, checking fence line in the far pasture. Rain hit sudden and complete, soaking us in seconds. Barn, he shouted over the downpour. We ran. Actually ran, racing the storm, laughing despite being drenched. In the barn, dripping and breathless, I caught him smiling rare, genuine. Something in my chest shifted at that smile. I smiled back. First real smile since leaving Boston. First moment of happiness that wasn't tinged with fear or guilt or careful pretense. Dangerous. So dangerous. Shared meals had evolved too. Less performance, more companionship. He'd tell brief stories about the ranch's history. Careful narratives that revealed little about himself, but much about this land. I'd offer equally edited stories about growing up poor lies, wrapped in enough truth to sound believable. Both of us pretending we didn't know I was lying. Both pretending the obvious contradictions weren't obvious. You read much? He asked one evening. Dangerous question. Some, I said carefully. What kind? Whatever I could find. Not technically a lie. In Boston, I'd read everything in Father's extensive library. Here, I didn't specify. There's books in the trunk, he said. Help yourself. I found them later poetry, philosophy, agricultural texts. Eclectic collection that spoke of a mind hungry for learning. Same as mine. But I didn't mention recognizing the authors. Didn't quote the philosophy I'd studied. Just selected a volume and read quietly while he worked on harness repairs. 4 months in, I realized I'd stopped thinking of this as hiding. Started thinking of it as home. That word home scared me more than detectives ever could, because home meant attachment. Meant caring about losing it. Meant I had something to protect beyond just my safety. I'd started noticing things about him I had no right to notice. The way his hands moved, confident. Careful. How he checked on me without hovering. How he'd slow his stride so I could keep pace without having to ask. The way he'd pour coffee without prompting. Leave the warmest chair for me. Fix things that made my work easier without mentioning it. Small kindnesses I'd stopped dismissing as Western manners. Started recognizing as something else. Something I didn't want to name because naming it made everything more complicated. Evening porch time became routine. We'd sit after dinner, watching the sun set over endless Montana sky, his silence comfortable now. My guard lowering incrementally. Sometimes I'd catch myself watching him instead of the sunset. The way lamplight caught his profile. The way he held his coffee cup. The way he'd glance over occasionally to check if I needed anything. I'd look away before he noticed. Before I had to acknowledge what I was feeling. Somewhere between winter and spring. Between arrival and belonging. I fell. Not the way Boston debutantes fell calculated. Strategic, arranged. I fell the way mountains crumble inevitable, complete, irreversible. I was falling in love with my husband. The one who didn't know my real name. The one I was lying to every single day. That night, lying in my bed across from his. I counted all the truths I wasn't telling. Counted all the ways this could shatter. Counted all the reasons I should leave before he found out. Before he sent me away, before this became more than I could survive losing. I counted until dawn. Then got up, made coffee, chose to stay one more day. Just one more day. That's what I told myself. Every morning, just one more day. The lies were piling up. The feelings were deepening. And I had no idea how to reconcile the two without destroying everything. The calf died on a Tuesday. I'd been checking on her all morning, seen her struggling, tried everything he'd taught me, stayed with her for hours, talking soft, trying to help. None of it mattered. By afternoon, she was gone. My fault. I'd missed something. Done something wrong. Failed at the one task he'd trusted me with. I sat in the barn and cried, not delicate tears, ugly, shaking sobs. Years of holding everything together coming apart? The calf was just excuse. I was crying for all of it, the lies, the fear, the impossibility of this situation I'd created. Hey, his voice, quiet from the doorway. I couldn't look at him. Couldn't stop crying. Couldn't explain that this was about more than a dead calf. He didn't speak again. Just sat down nearby. Not touching. Just present. Somehow his silence was permission to fall apart completely. I'm not who you think, I said through tears. Dangerous words, too close to confession. I don't belong here. I'm ruining everything. You belong where you choose to belong. But you don't know. I know you work hard, he interrupted gently. I know you're brave. I know you keep trying even when it's hard. That's what I need to know. His hand settled on my shoulder. First deliberate touch in months. Warm, steady, grounding. Who you were before doesn't change who you are now. He continued. I wanted to tell him everything. Spill the truth like I'd spilled tears. Boston mansion, father's business empire, Blackwood's cruelty, the arranged marriage, the escape, all of it. But another part, the part that had kept me alive this long whispered warnings. What if truth was too much? What if knowing destroyed this fragile thing between us? The calf wasn't your fault, he said. Sometimes things die despite everything. That's ranching. You did everything right. I'd done nothing right. Not with the calf. Not with him. Nothing. I'm tired, I said finally. Not just physically. Tired of carrying secrets. Tired of lies. Tired of being two people. Catherine Ashford from Boston and the nameless ranch wife, pretending poverty. Rest. Then he stood, squeezed my shoulder once more, then left, giving me space, always giving me space. Never demanding, never pressing, just offering quiet acceptance of whoever I was, whatever I was running from. That night, lying in my bed, I stared across at his empty one and felt the space between them like physical weight. 6 months approaching, our marriage would be legal soon. Real, in eyes of law. But how could it be real if, built on deception, I'd started noticing him differently? Not just as rancher teaching skills, but as man, the way lamplight caught his jaw. How his rare smiles transformed his whole face. The sound of his voice saying my false name, making it tender. I wanted to close the space between those beds. Wanted to tell him everything. Wanted to be known, truly known, and still accepted. But what if confession destroyed us? What if he felt betrayed by months of lies? What if, knowing Catherine, Ashford the heiress, made him see me differently than whoever he thought he'd married? I'd run from Boston to escape being defined by my name, my family, my wealth, here. I'd built new identity, new life, new self. But it was built on lies, and lies, no matter how well-intentioned, couldn't sustain love. Could they? I didn't know. Didn't know if truth would free me or destroy me. Only knew I was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of half-truths. Tired of loving him. While lying to him, something had to break. I just didn't know if it would be my cover or my heart. I fell asleep, still undecided, still caught between fear and longing, still counting all the ways confession could go wrong, still choosing, despite everything, to stay one more day. Ordinary morning, working in the garden, pulling weeds from between rows of young plants. Sun warm on my back, dirt under my fingernails, marks of this new life I'd built. Then I heard horses. I looked up and my world stopped. 2 riders approaching, professional, purposeful. Before they dismounted, I recognized them. Father's men, Pinkerton detectives, the past I'd been running from. Finally, catching up. My mind raced through calculations, escape routes, excuses, anything. But there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. 6 months of peace ending in the time it took them to ride up the path. James came out of the barn, wiping his hands, looked at the riders, then at me. Question in his eyes. Not anger yet, not betrayal, just question. The lead detective was professional, polite, devastating. Miss Ashford, your father is concerned for your welfare. He's authorized us to offer substantial reward for your safe return to Boston. Miss Ashford, my real name, spoken aloud after months of hiding it. I watched James's face, saw the moment he processed it, saw him learning I'd lied about even my name. Time moved strange. Too fast detectives speaking, revealing everything. Too slow watching James's expression, waiting for anger, counting seconds until he sent me away. Miss Ashford is from a prominent Boston family, the detective continued, pulling out papers. Considerable wealth. She disappeared 3 months before her arranged marriage to Cornelius Blackwood. Her father is willing to overlook this episode if she returns immediately. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't explain. 6 months of lies catching up in single moment. James looked at me. Really looked. I tried to read his expression, but couldn't. Shock, disappointment, fury at my deception. Then he stepped between me and the detectives. Lady here chooses to stay, he said, voice steady. That's all that matters? The detective persisted. Sir? Perhaps you don't understand. She's an heiress. Her family didn't ask about her family, asked if she chooses to stay. The detectives laid out everything then. The Ashford name, father's business empire, the Boston mansion, the society connections, the arranged marriage I'd fled, my trust fund, every detail of the life I'd abandoned. James listened without interrupting, learning everything, processing that his poor ranch wife was actually wealthy beyond anything this Montana ranch represented. His face showed nothing, but his position never changed, standing between me and them, protecting my right to choose. I found my voice finally. Tell my father I'm exactly where I choose to be. The words came out stronger than I felt. I stood beside James, not behind him, claiming my choice. Owning my decision. The detectives tried a few more arguments: financial incentives, family obligations, social consequences. None of it mattered. Finally, they left, riding away with their reward money unspent, carrying message back to Father that I'd made my choice. We watched them disappear into distance. Then the silence settled, heavy and weighted. I turned to face James, bracing for questions, for anger, for the explosion of betrayed trust. He looked at me for a long moment. Catherine Ashford, he said, testing the name. My real name. I nodded, unable to speak. Heiress? To a Boston fortune? Another nod. Running from arranged marriage. Yes. More silence. I waited for accusations, for demands to know why I'd lied, for anger at deception. You hungry? He asked finally. Should probably have lunch. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Almost. That's it. That's all you're going to say. What do you want me to say? I lied to you for 6 months. About everything. Did you lie about wanting to be here? No. About working hard to learn this life? No. About choosing to stay? No. He shrugged. Then we'll have lunch. Talk about the rest later if you want. Or not. Later. Sitting at the table with food neither of us touched. The silence felt different. Weighted with knowledge, with truth laid bare by strangers, with everything I hadn't chosen to reveal. I'm sorry, I said finally. You deserve to know, to hear it from me. Maybe. He studied his coffee cup. But you're here now. That's what matters. Is it, you tell me. The space between us had never felt wider. I'd been exposed, but not by my choice. Not my confession, not my terms. Now I had to decide what came next. Continue half-truths. Full confession. Leave before he had chance to send me away that night. Lying in bed. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop replaying the day. His face, learning everything. His immediate defense of my choice. His quiet acceptance that felt harder to handle than anger would have been. I'd been caught, exposed, all my lies revealed, and he'd stood between me and them anyway. What did I do with that? I packed in darkness. Carpet bag out from under the bed. My few possessions folded carefully inside. Maybe leaving would be easier for both of us. Cleaner. Let him find someone honest. Someone who didn't build their life on deception. The bag sat packed on my bed, lit by moonlight through the window. Just like months ago in Boston. Ready to run again. Ready to escape again. You leaving? I spun. James stood in the doorway, fully dressed despite the late hour. He'd been awake too. Then, watching, waiting. I don't know. My voice came out small. I don't know what you want me to do. That's the problem right there. He stepped into the room. You're asking what I want. What do you want? Catherine? Catherine. My real name from his lips. First time hearing it in his voice made it sound different, made it sound like it belonged to me. Not Father's business plans. I want. The words stuck. I want to stay, but I lied to you. For 6 months. I lied. You survived. He moved closer. You built a life. You chose to be here. That's not lying. That's living. You deserve to know from the start. Why? The question stopped me. So I could judge you. Decide if Catherine Ashford was suitable? Seems like that's what you were running from in the first place. I'd spent 6 months building life on lies. Now truth was out ugly, exposed by strangers. I couldn't fix it, couldn't explain it right, could only wait for him to decide if I was worth keeping. I knew you were running from something, he continued. First day, your hands, your speech. The way you looked at everything like you'd never seen it before. I knew. Then why didn't you ask? Because your past is yours. You share it if you want. What matters is, do you choose to stay? Part of me wanted him to be angry, to yell, to demand explanations, because I knew how to handle that. Father's rage was familiar territory. But this patient acceptance, this grace, I didn't know what to do with it. Every day I thought you'd figure it out and send me away, I said, confessing now. Words tumbling out. Every kindness you showed made the lies feel worse. Every time you taught me something with such patience, I felt like I was stealing from you, taking advantage. Or maybe you were just learning to survive. I had money. The words burst out. A trust fund. A fortune. I could have stayed in Boston, been comfortable, had everything except choice. That stopped me. What? You could have had everything except the ability to choose your own life. That's what you ran from. Isn't it being told who to marry, who to be, what your life would look like? I sank onto the edge of the bed. He was right. That was exactly what I'd fled. Tell me about Blackwood, he said quietly. So I did. Told him about Cornelius Blackwood's reputation for cruelty, his first wife's convenient death. The servants whispered warnings. Father's indifference to my safety because the business merger was more valuable than my life. I was merchandise, I said, being sold to close a deal, and everyone knew it. Father knew what Blackwood was. Didn't care. James listened without interrupting. No judgment in his expression, just attention. My grandmother was the only one who told me to choose my own life. I continued. On her deathbed, she squeezed my hand and said those exact words, choose your own life. Catherine? So I did. I found that mail order advertisement and I ran. You were brave. I was terrified. Both things can be true. The packed carpet bag sat between us. Physical reminder that I was ready to run again. Ready to escape again. Why did you pack? He asked, nodding toward it. Because I thought maybe it would be easier if I left. Before you had to send me away. Before this got more complicated. More complicated than loving you. I thought, but couldn't say it. Not yet. Maybe never. I'm tired of running, I said instead. But I don't know how to stop. Don't know how to stay in one place when I've spent months expecting everything to fall apart. He was quiet for a long moment. Then the detectives came today. Offered reward money. I sent them away. I know. Before asking what you wanted. I know. That was wrong of me. Should have asked you first if you wanted to go back. If you wanted the life they were offering. I looked up. Met his eyes. I told them I choose to stay. You sure? Because if you want to go back, collect your trust fund. Live in comfort. I'm sure. The words came out fierce. Certain. I choose this. I choose. I stopped. Swallowed. I choose you. The silence stretched. I'd said too much. Revealed too much. Laid my heart bare when he'd only asked about practical matters. Then he crossed the space between us. Sat beside me on the bed. Took my hand, the one with calluses now. With scars from learning this life. I'd like to hear everything, he said. When you're ready, your story, your truth, all of it. But only when you want to tell it. On your terms. I want to tell you now. And I did. I was tired of carrying secrets alone. So I told him everything. Boston mansion, father's business, the dinner parties where men discussed me like property, the 3 months of planning my escape, the terror of the train ride west, the daily fear of discovery, the growing feelings I'd tried to deny. Dawn was breaking by the time I finished. The carpet bag stayed packed, but I didn't pick it up. Your past made you who you are, he said finally, but who you choose to be. Now that's what matters to me. I'd run from father's choice. Now I was running toward my own. The past didn't define me unless I let it. And I was done letting it. We talked through sunrise. Me telling everything. Him listening. No judgments. No accusations. Just questions that helped me tell the story complete. I told him about being 14. Learning to pour tea correctly while men discussed stock prices over my head. About being 20. Watching father negotiate my marriage like property sale. About being 23. Realizing I had 3 months to escape or spend lifetime being crushed. I told myself I was running toward freedom. I said, but really, I was just running. Didn't know the difference until I got here. What's the difference? Running from something is fear. Running toward something is choice. I looked at him. You taught me that. You taught me choice. I didn't teach you anything. You learned it yourself. But that wasn't true. He'd taught me through patient example, through giving space instead of demanding answers, through respecting my autonomy even when it meant accepting lies. You could have pressed for information, I said. Could have demanded to know why my hands were soft, why my speech was educated, why I didn't know basic survival skills. You had every right. Rights aren't the same as wisdom. He poured more coffee, the familiar ritual grounding. Figured you'd tell me when you were ready. Or you wouldn't. Either way. I was willing to work with who you were, not who you'd been. He wasn't accepting me despite my past. He was accepting all of it. The privilege, the escape, the lies, the learning as part of my story. Not erasing chapters, reading the whole book. I'd spent months afraid of this moment. And sitting in it, feeling weight lift. I understood something fundamental. I'd been carrying shame that wasn't mine. Father's choices weren't my identity. Blackwood's cruelty wasn't my fault. I'd survived. That was enough. The detectives offered return to wealth, comfort, status. I said, you sent them away. Before asking what you wanted. That was wrong. No. I shifted to face him fully. That was the first time anyone has ever defended my right to choose without asking what I'd choose. You didn't care about the money or the status or the connections. You cared about my autonomy. Still should have asked. I'm asking now. I stood up, crossed to where he sat. I choose this. I choose you. I choose the life we're building. He looked up at me, searching my face. You're sure, because going back wouldn't make you weak. If you wanted, I kissed him. First time. Not arrangement, not duty, but choice. Pure choice. He stood, hands finding my waist, pulling me closer. This kiss was nothing like the chaste peck we'd exchanged at our mail-order wedding. This was 6 months of held-back feeling, 6 months of growing love, 6 months of choosing each other daily without words. When we broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, I said, the words I'd been afraid to speak. Not the version you thought you married. Not some idea of who I should be. Just me, all of me. The Boston parts and the Montana parts and all the messy in between. I love you too. His voice rough. Have for months, but didn't think I had right to say it. Thought you might be here out of necessity. Out of fear, not choice. It was fear at first. I admitted. Fear kept me here initially, but somewhere along the way, fear became hope. Hope became belonging. Belonging became love. That night, the space between our beds finally disappeared. I moved my things across the room in darkness. Small act with enormous meaning. Are you sure? He asked, watching. I've never been more sure of anything. We lay together in his bed, our bed now his arm around me, my head on his chest. Safe, known, chosen. I ran from Father's choice. I said quietly, now I'm running toward my own. Choosing you. Choosing this ranch. Choosing hard work and calloused hands and Montana sky. Choosing truth over comfort. Choosing love built on foundation of being fully known. He added, yes, that exactly. For 6 months, I'd thought confession would destroy us. Turned out, lies were what had been destroying me. Truth didn't break us. Truth built us. Finally built us on solid ground. Tell me about your family. I said, fair exchange. He'd heard my story. Time to hear his... He told me about growing up on this ranch. Parents dying young. Building this life alone. About loneliness he'd accepted as permanent, until my letter arrived answering his advertisement. I didn't expect what we've found, he said. Thought I was getting help with the ranch. Got a partner instead. Got love. Even though I lied, you survived. That's not lying. That's being human. I'd spent months afraid his acceptance was ignorance. Afraid he'd accepted me because he didn't know the truth. Now I understood he'd chosen to accept me regardless of truth. He'd given me space to share when ready. That was love. Real love. The kind that said, I see all of you. I choose all of you. Stay. Morning found us still talking, still processing, still choosing each other. Light crept through windows, promising new day, not new beginning. We'd had that already. This was continuation. This was choosing to keep building on foundation we'd laid together. Your father might not give up, he said practically. Might send more detectives. Let him. I felt fierce certainty. I told them my choice. I'll keep telling them. The money is mine by right, but I don't need it. Have everything I need right here. Still, we discussed practicalities. Writing to Father formally, claiming my inheritance to use as I chose, not as he dictated. Building security for our future. But those were details. What mattered, I'd stopped running. Stopped hiding, started choosing. Every day, every moment, choosing this life, this love, this freedom. That was victory. Summer came full. The ranch thrived under our joint effort. My hands were calloused now, my back stronger, my heart finally unguarded. I worked beside him every day, equal partner in every sense. The letter from Father arrived in August. Brief, cold, informing me that Cornelius Blackwood had married someone else. The business merger had collapsed anyway. I read it twice, then set it aside. The life Father had planned for me, it had fallen apart without me. I'd thought I was crucial piece. Turned out I was just convenient one. That realization felt like freedom. I hadn't destroyed anything important by leaving. Father's empire survived. Blackwood found another bride. They'd moved on. I could move on too. Had moved on already. "You all right?" James asked, seeing the letter. "Better than all right?" I smiled, just realizing I was never as trapped as I thought. Could have chosen differently any time. Just took me 23 years to understand that. We decided to write Father formally, claiming my inheritance, not to use immediately, but to secure on our own terms. Money that would be ours to invest in the ranch, in our future, in choices we'd make together. September brought visitor, a woman from Boston I'd known socially. Passing through Montana with her husband on some business venture, she stopped at the ranch. Shocked to find me, I saw my life through her eyes. The rough cabin, my work-worn hands, simple dress, sun-darkened skin, dirt under my fingernails from morning's garden work. Everything Boston society would consider failure. Her pity was obvious. "Catherine, you poor dear. I had no idea you'd fallen so far. If you need help." "I don't need help," I said calmly. "I'm exactly where I choose to be. But your family's wealth doesn't define me." She looked around at the modest cabin, at James working nearby, at the life we'd built. "You could come back, reclaim your position. No one needs to know about all this. This is my home." The words came firm, clear. "He's my husband." Not because I had to choose it, because I wanted to. She couldn't understand. Couldn't fathom choosing this over Boston ballrooms, over society connections, over comfort and status and wealth. I didn't need her to understand. I understood. That was enough. After she left, James came to stand beside me on the porch. "That bother you?" "No." I took his hand. "Year ago, maybe not now, because year ago, I'd run. Today, I was rooted. Year ago, I was Catherine Ashford, heiress, running from arranged marriage. Today, I was Catherine Thornton, rancher's wife, running toward everything I'd chosen. Both true, both me, neither defining me more than the other. I'd learned the past doesn't define us unless we let it. Real love accepts your whole story, chapters you're proud of and chapters you'd rather forget, then helps you. Write better chapters. Your future is determined by your choices, not your history." I touched grandmother's necklace at my throat. Only thing I'd kept from Boston. Her final gift. Her permission to choose. I decided to write her grave. Tell her I'd finally understood. Tell her I'd chosen my own life. Tell her that choosing wasn't one moment, but every day, every decision. Every small act of saying this is who I am. This is what I want. This is where I belong. Evening settled soft over Montana. We sat on the porch, hands linked, watching the sky shift from blue to gold to purple. The same ritual we'd developed months ago, now deeper, richer, more real. 2 coffee cups sat on the table where once I'd only set one. Simple symbol of transformation, of acceptance, of choice. "You ever regret it?" he asked quietly. choosing this. Never. I leaned against his shoulder. You never. The Montana sky stretched endless above us. No limits. No expectations. No roles to play except the ones we chose for ourselves. Just possibility. Just us. Just choice. Every day, choosing this life. I'd come to Montana running from something. I'd stayed running toward everything. I'd learned the difference between escape and choosing. Between hiding and becoming. Between surviving and living. The woman who fled Boston in darkness died somewhere along the trail. The woman who lived here now, she was someone I'd chosen to become. Someone built from ashes of that old life. Tempered by this new one. Shaped by daily decisions to stay. To try. To love. I chose this. I chose him. I chose me. And I'd keep choosing. Every morning I woke in our bed. Every evening I sat on this porch. Every moment I lived this life, I'd built from ruins of the one I'd escaped. That wasn't just survival. That was victory. I love this life, I said softly. I love you, he replied. Simple words, simple truth. Simply chosen every single day.